To start, actually, Charles, we wanted to do something a little different this time. We wanted you to listen to a song.
All right.
You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials because the revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by Xerox in 4 parts without commercial interruptions. The revolution will not show you pictures of Nixon blowing a bugle and leading a charge by John Mitchell, General Abrams, and Spyro Agnew to eat hog maws confiscated from a Harlem sanctuary. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by the Schaefer Award Theater and will not star Natalie Woods and Steve McQueen or Bullwinkle and Julia. The revolution will not give your mouth sex appeal. The revolution will not get rid of the nubs. The revolution will not make you look 5 pounds thinner because the revolution will not be televised, brother. There will be no pictures of you and Willie Mae pushing that shopping cart down the block on the dead run or trying to slide that color TV into a stolen ambulance. NBC will not be able to predict the winner at 8:32 on the court from 29 districts. The revolution will not be televised. There will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of Whitney Young being run out of Harlem on a rail with a brand new process. There will be no slow motion or still life of Roy Wilkins strolling through Watts in a red, black, and green liberation jumpsuit that he has been saving for just the proper occasion. Green Acres, Beverly Hillbillies, and Hooterville Junction will no longer be so damn relevant, and women will not care if Dick finally got down with Jane on Search for Tomorrow, because black people will be in the street looking for a brighter day. The revolution will not be televised. There will be no highlights on the 11 o'clock news and no pictures of Harry R. Woman Liberationists and Jackie Onassis blowing her nose. The theme song will not be written by Jim Webb or Francis Scott Keys, nor sung by Glenn Campbell, Tom Jones, Johnny Cash, Engelbert Humperdinck, or The Rare Earth. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be right back after a message about a white tornado, white lightning, or white people. You will not have to worry about a dove in your bedroom, the tiger in your tank, or the giant in your toilet bowl. The revolution will not go better with Coke. The revolution will not fight germs that may cause bad breath. The revolution will put you in the driver's seat. The revolution will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised. The revolution will be no rerun, brothers. The revolution will be live.
All right.
So that was a song by Jill Scott Heron, and it was preached to many tens of thousands of people during the civil rights movement. And I mean, it says something to me. I wanted to know what it says to you.
Well, I think one thing I like about it is that it associates the revolution with authenticity and being fed up with the society of the spectacle, where nothing's quite real. It's all kind of a show, and even today, you know, things are evaluated so much by their image or their optics or the perceptions people have about them, that we've lost touch with on the ground, in your face, gritty reality. I mean, that's how our whole society runs, you know. The epitome of that is the financial system, which is completely abstract and disconnected. What is good in the financial system is usually terrible in people's daily lives and relationships, you know. So, I mean, I know that like there's a lot in that famous phrase, "The revolution will not be televised," but it stirs something in me because its radicalism goes deeper than ordinary political radicalism. There's kind of a spiritual radicalism in it as well.
Well, what I was going to say was, I mean, in the COP21 talks, a lot of this is kind of a spectacle. I mean, a lot of this is based on the fact that, you know, we're bringing in bureaucrats and politicians from all over the world to discuss things that they don't truly themselves understand, but they got scientific fact given to them, fact, of course, and there's an enormous amount of pressure that is being put on this one moment, and this kind of expression of we need to do something right here and right now. And we just listened to something for me that was very moving, right? At the end of this COP21 journey that we've had here in France, you come on stage and you talk a little bit about the fact that maybe there are things that we don't know. Maybe there are underlying factors that we just aren't understanding, and us trying to manipulate this even further and say, oh, well, we know we have the solution, all we need to do is fix carbon, everything's going to be okay. But our approach to such sometimes feels just like we're going to perpetuate or exacerbate the problem even further. How do you feel about that? I mean, you know, maybe speak a little bit to that, because maybe the real revolution that we do need is not televised.
Yeah, we're going to fix carbon and everything will be okay. Meaning, and this is actually implicit in the word sustainability, you know, what are we trying to sustain here? And you could conceive of fixing carbon and keeping everything else almost the same. You know, all you got to do is find an alternative fuel source. Maybe, you know, biofuels, maybe hydrogen or something like that, and still have the kind of form of economic development that we have, you know, stay intact. Now that's probably not possible, but you can at least pretend that it's possible. You can at least pretend there's such a thing as a green economy or green growth or sustainable growth. And on the one hand, talk about alternative energy and conservation and stuff, yet on the other hand, pursue development policies that require something at least similar to what we have now. You know, like so pretty much, I mean, the world's financial institutions and most, quote, developing countries are not questioning really that, well, of course we have to develop, we have to build roads, we have to build ports, you know, we have to build export industries, that kind of thing. And so there's kind of like this hope that isn't very deeply examined that can be done without fossil fuels or with you know, some substitute for fossil fuels. Now I think that hope does not withstand scrutiny, but the fact that it's even conceivable, points to an insufficient depth in our grasp of the problem. You know, I mean, we still think that we can essentially go on as we've been going on, and that the intractable problems of our civilization are kind of incidental. That we can, that our basic direction is somehow independent from the horrors of inequality and injustice and ecocide that are happening. That we can keep the one without get rid of the others. You know, keep the ascent of humanity, keep the development as we've conceived it, but do it in a way that's socially just and economically sustainable. I think that is impossible. And the crisis that we're in is going to call us more and more deeply to question the very heart of our meaning the dominant culture's ambition.
So Mark knows that I'm a theo nut, a theologist nut, and I appreciate, you know, the scriptures of ancient religions because I see them for their value that they had in the time that they were needed as a tool to understand the slippery, to understand and be okay with what is unknown, and to find balance in a reality that could be measured but also could not be measured. And I feel like now we're kind of moving towards a global perspective where it's becoming less and less acceptable to believe in something that is so abstract. How do you sympathize with older religions? Do you sympathize with any current ones? Or would you call it spirituality?
I think that all religions have an esoteric core that is saying pretty much the same thing. And that is, I mean, the word religion means to bring us back, you know, to tie, right? So religion, to tie us back again, maybe to bond us once again, to rebond us to something that we've lost touch with. And I think every religion has that potential. Certainly there's, the major world religions have an accretion of institutional distortions of that esoteric core.
Yeah, and it's more and more further from its essence, right? The connection that it served for people, for humanity at the time when there was such a dire struggle that they needed an answer to overcome something as bad as climate change, but for them was different. And yeah, I think that maybe the world needs a spin like that again. And in what flavor or color, language it'll come in, I think is a mystery.
So obviously, in the vernacular that has surrounded you and the stories that have surrounded you, there's a lot of talk, and even in the kind of stuff that we put out, there's a lot of talk about building the world that we know is possible in our hearts. And that world, although the glimmer of hope of that lives within me, and I think within the movements that are present here, that are present around the world, that are looking to change society, how do you feel when, I mean, part of me feels like we're going to have to hit the brick wall. Is that brick wall avoidable? Like, how do you feel about that? How do you feel?
I don't think it's avoidable. So right now we're kind of addicted to control. When control fails, our response is that it must be because we didn't have enough of it. So when, border controls and surveillance fail to prevent a terrorist attack, we think we need even more of that, and more bombing, more, troops, more cameras, more, et cetera, et cetera. And then it fails again, as it will fail again. When it fails again, you do it even more. Well, that is just like an alcohol addiction, where you drink to make yourself feel good. And then, because you're drinking so much, you lose your job and you feel even shittier. So you do what worked last time, which is to drink some more, and you feel good. And then your wife leaves you, and that really hurts. So then you drink some more, and eventually, the pain, the suffering caused by maintaining control is so great that you cannot do it anymore, and you have to let go. And I think that's what you're calling hitting the brick wall. We reach a point of helplessness that our solutions are powerless to change our situation, and we don't know what to do, and we stop. And then in that moment of stopping, understanding comes. Understanding of the root causes, of the deep illness. And once we understand that, then we start to know what to do.
So, just really quick, what would you do? What would you do in your life, given that brick wall is going to be hit in some way, shape, or form, whatever that means, right? But what would you tell that person?
I would say to listen to the call for what love wants you to do. It may take the form of something you can identify as activism, but it may be a very subtle kind of activism, because the underlying field, the psychic field that causes climate change is really just a culture based on fear, alienation, separation. So really any personal or social healing, anything that changes the background conditions and gives people an experience of connection, intimacy, radical acceptance, love, compassion, any of those things, that changes the ground from which all of our institutions and systems spring. So some people might be moved to work on that level. And I think that it's important to recognize that all of these levels, from the political to the personal, are equally important. And because a lot of people would tend to privilege the kind of big picture stuff over the small stuff.
Absolutely.
So I would say, just trust what calls you. Trust what pulls at your heart and calls you to put love into action on any level.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and taking the time.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thanks a lot, Charles. Just becoming a better messenger every day.
Thanks.
Hard shit regardless.